Welcome back to the channel. Tune in or ghost out. So here's the deal. We might need to accept the fact that World War III may have already started and it kicked off while most of us were asleep. I'm not saying that to get clicks. I'm saying that because of what's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. We've got major drone incursions, major military meetings, infrastructure attacks, and silent escalations from both Russia and China. This is not normal. I'm here to break it down. Keep it simple, no fear baiting, just facts. By the way, if you're new to this channel, please go ahead, drop a like and a subscription. 93% of you that tune in are not subscribed. Let's change that. It's free and it means more to me than you could ever know. First, let's start off in America. Today, September 30th, the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called an emergency meeting with over 800 top generals worldwide. And yes, Trump was also in attendance and he gave a speech. While this meeting was a major nothing burger, essentially he called in all these generals to tell them to stop being fat, lazy, and trans. But in all that messaging, he did say that we are preparing for war. While many media outlets focused on the funny and insane things that he said during this meeting, I think the major thing we had to pay attention to is that he said we are preparing for a war.
Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O.
Now, this already sounds pretty serious to me, but layer that on top of a potential US government shutdown, we've got real pressure building behind the scenes and on the front lines. If a government shutdown happens, this would directly strand all 800 generals that have to fly into the US here and not where they're supposed to be at their bases, not to take into account how many actual military soldiers would be affected by the shutdown. But that's not all that's happening in the US. This meeting comes right after Ukraine formally asked for Tomahawk cruise missiles. Why is this a big deal, you may ask? Because Tomahawk missiles can strike deep inside Russian territory, even hitting the city of Moscow. Giving Ukraine these missiles wouldn't win them the war overnight, but it would cross a line that Russia has warned against since the start of this war. But even with that in mind, Hegseth and JD Vance have already backed the move and are just waiting on Donald Trump to sign off on it. If Donald Trump does sign off on this, it marks a clear shift from trying to end the war to throwing real fuel on a fire. I'm not saying that I want the Ukrainians to not get these missiles, or I do, but the change of tone that we've had on Ukraine is kind of confusing at this point. Do we support them? Do we not? We need to stand firm where we are and stop flip-flopping back and forth. Now that we've covered the Americas, let's go over to the Atlantic. Denmark, a country that's usually calm and quiet and known for being one of the happiest places on earth, is currently on high alert right now. Why? Because of drones. Not just one or two, but for 5 straight days, unidentified drones have been spotted flying over key infrastructure, military bases, airports, and even Danish airspace near the capital city. Some of the places drones have been spotted include the Aalborg Airport, which doubles as a military base, the Skrydstrup Air Base, home to Denmark's F-16s and F-35s, Karup, one of the largest military bases in Denmark, and even the Copenhagen Airport had to shut down temporarily. That's 2 major airport shutdowns in under a week. Denmark had no choice but to ban all civilian drone flights across the country just to get control of the situation. Officials in Denmark are calling this a hybrid attack, basically meaning that it's not full-blown war, but it's coordinated disruption, something between spying and sabotage. And the scariest part of all this, they don't know who's flying the drones or how they're getting into the airspace undetected. But let's be honest, everyone suspects that it's Russia, but the fact that they're getting these so close to Denmark airspace and civilian populations without being seen on radar is kind of terrifying. And just to show how seriously they're taking it, Sweden sent anti-drone systems and radar units to help Denmark track and defend their airspace against these drones. This is all happening before a major EU summit in Copenhagen this Wednesday. So the timing isn't random, it's likely a test or even a message, but here's what makes it feel even more like a dry run for something bigger. Denmark's military can't shoot these drones down in certain areas because it's too risky, like near airports, fuel depots, or cities. So for 5 days straight, someone, likely a hostile state, has been flying drones over a NATO country, poking poking at its defenses. That's not a prank, that's straight up provocation, and Denmark isn't taking it laying down. They have recently called upon all military reservists in the country to step up and enlist in the military. While this doesn't necessarily stop the drones, this does show Russia that they are taking it seriously. Before we jump into Russia and China's connection and all of this, I want to take a break and explain some things to you. These drone tactics that we're seeing are not new, and over the past month, Russia has been employing these more and more often. We've seen these in Estonia, Poland, literally any country next to Ukraine. Russia is putting drones in their airspace to piss them off. Russia does not want to send bullets or bombs to these countries. They just want to sabotage and get them on heightened fear. So let's talk sabotage. Russia and China have both been working together to cut underwater lines. In the Baltic Sea, underwater internet and energy cables have been mysteriously damaged multiple times this year alone. These aren't natural accidents. Ships tied to Russia and China have been spotted accidentally dragging their anchors near cable routes. One ship, identified as the Yipeng 3, linked to China, damaged key internet cables between Finland and Germany, and that was just a few months ago. Surprisingly, or unsurprisingly to you, depending on how much you follow this stuff, Europe has not really been taking many actions against China or Russia for doing these things, but with the recent drone incursions and system hacks that are happening in all the Western states, Europe and its allies are taking more and more steps to defend against this. They have started putting up anti-drone nets around their cities, building bunkers, and trying to protect key infrastructure like their power grid for being attacked in the future. And that's why I'm telling you, it's not just all talk. The war doesn't just have a day that it starts. These countries have been preparing, and now we're in the hybrid warfare stage. With that explanation out the way, let's jump into Russia and China. Now look, Russia and China aren't formally in an alliance, but let's be honest, they're moving like partners. They've even opened up their borders to let citizens of both countries freely travel to each side, but militarily, they are looking more and more like a unit than ever. They have held multiple joint military exercises. They are both testing and working on hypersonic missiles, and while Russia is openly putting their name on a lot of this sabotage, China is definitely in the shadows helping. Let's focus on Russia for 1 second. One of the things that happened this Monday that a lot of people in the news missed was that Russia just had their autumn draft and Putin just drafted 135,000 Russian men. This is the biggest draft in almost a decade. And obviously, it's not just to fight Ukraine. This smells like a prep for a larger conflict. And don't just take my word for it. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov literally said, NATO and the European Union have in fact already declared a real war on my country. This isn't diplomacy or a peace deal or any hopes of negotiation. This sounds like groundwork for open conflict. Will those 135,000 troops be used to maybe attack Poland or just only attack Ukraine? Well, if you think either of those are going to happen, you're wrong, because China has called upon Russia to help them with the invasion of Taiwan. I know, I said they're not partners, and they're not, but they're definitely moving like they are. If I want to tell you about everything China's doing, I'd have to make an entire separate video because China has been on a huge roll lately. They have been passing every country in AI development, medical development, and they haven't really had to deal with the troubles that America has had to deal with in the press. As America pulls away from the world stage, China is trying to fill our spot, and it's working. But what does this all mean for you? Look, we've been trained to think war starts with tanks and missiles, but this new kind of war, it's slower, quieter, and smarter, and way more dangerous. Instead of sending troops or invading, you cut underwater sea cables, you send drones over airports and civilian infrastructure, you target civilian power grids, and you create fear and confusion without a headline-grabbing strike. This is what we're seeing now. It's already happening, and the world powers are responding like it's a war, even if nobody has the balls to call it that out loud. So yeah, maybe World War III didn't begin with a nuke, maybe it began with a drone, a blackout, and a few cables snapping under the sea, but the sides are already drawn, the weapons already in play, and the world is turning purple from holding its breath. But let me know down below in the comments, do you think World War III already started and we just didn't notice? What's the moment that made you say, yeah, something feels off? Hit the like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. I want to give you more breakdowns where we skip the fluff and get straight to the facts. But with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Transmission complete. Signal terminating. This is Ghost Thread, signing off.